I got to a phase that I was pretty good, but then I was hitting a ceiling at around 700 TSS a week.
700 yes.
And I was not taking any formal coaching, etc. And I wanted to do more. And I did not take care of one nutrition. The other thing is I did not take care of rest. So I think that was the big learning that in hindsight now I see what was very needed at that time. And I ended up being from very strong to actually burning out.
I am Venki, a working professional in IT as well as an amateur masters athlete and a coach for endurance sports. You are listening to the Working Athlete podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, I have a small request from you. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also let me know what you like and what you would like to listen to more of by commenting in the comment section on YouTube. I promise to do my best to improve with each episode and bring you the best content that helps you and me get better each day. In this episode, I talk to my good friend Milam Saxena. Milam is one of my regular training partners who joins me for our Nandi Hills rides every Saturday. I have known him for about 10 years. I have seen his growth as a cyclist and as an amazing human being. He is one of the most workaholic people I know. I have seen him struggle trying to manage his training with crazy travel and work schedules. I have also seen him find his groove and become one of the strongest cyclists I know, all while managing the same busy work schedule and raising a young family. He achieved a 22-minute Nandi time with a very time crunch training approach. In this episode, he shares what structure has worked for him and how he overcame the challenging times along the way. His journey is a great case study on how someone with a very limited time to train could also achieve great results with some meticulous planning and execution. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with this amazing human. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. This episode is brought to you by The Bike Affair. If you are in search of a one-stop destination that caters to all your cycling needs, our today's sponsor, The Bike Affair, is the perfect place to check out. I have known the founders of The Bike Affair, Krish and Gokul, personally for nearly 15 years now. In fact, my first century ride was with Krish back in 2008. They are both exceptional human beings and entrepreneurs that believe in providing exceptional service to their customers, and it shows. With over 14 years of experience, the Bike Affair has established itself as a trusted source offering honest advice and exceptional service. They are offering a special treat for the listeners of this podcast. You can enjoy a 10% discount on your first order by using the code BikeyVenki on their website. So if you are in Hyderabad, visit their store in Kondapur, or if you are anywhere else in India, shop online by using the link thebikeaffair.com. I will leave the link in the show notes. Now, enjoy the podcast. Hi, Milam.
Hi, Venki.
Welcome to the Working Athlete podcast.
Thank you for having me.
The main thing that I want to talk about with you is the theme I thought is very apt for you is how to train effectively with limited time, right? All of us working athletes are always complaining about availability of time, and that's the most scarcest resource we have. And but we need to manage our training in whatever way we can. And I see over the years, um, I have seen you struggle with it, right? And more recently seem to have found some sort of balance there and are doing extremely well in our Nandi rides and the climbs themselves and all that. So I'm very curious about how you are managing it. But before we get there, I want to start by talking about what was your relationship with sport growing up.
Cool. So I was my school years were in Dehradun, and I actually used to stay quite far from the city. And cycling was something that made me feel very free. We were very near to the forest areas, so I used to just go out over there and feel very free riding around and stuff. So I think that was something that really hooked me on to cycling in the younger years. If you talk about larger sports, the school that I was in was actually very academically focused. So I was not a lot into cycling at all. Or other sports, I was not very active in sports. But yeah, I think what inspired me was always looking towards Mussoorie. So Dehradun is a valley, and it's about around 450 meters elevation, and you always would be looking at Mussoorie from there. So I don't know, from a very young age, I just thought that if I could just cycle to Mussoorie, and then that was something that I think was etched in my memory. So that made me always love cycling. I was not, I was very sure that I would not be getting into sports as a career for sure. It was more about academics and work, and I'm a more of a like the regular kind of guy. And but yeah, cycling was something which was very close to my heart from that time.
What what do you, what were you riding at that time?
So it was a BSA rock and roll. I think from 8th class onwards.
Ah,
Yeah, and in college, so I did my undergrad from a place called Pantnagar, uh, which just so happens where the nationals were just happening.
nice.
So there I had a BSA Map 1.
Nice,
And
nice. So, uh, and you were focused academically, and you were like, what did the MBA and all that stuff, and started working, right? Uh, how any activity during that time, or was it like busy with work as is the usual case?
So undergrads, I was a lot into college activities. In fact, the one personal ambition that I had when I was in Pantnagar was to cycle to Nainital. So Nainital was like 62 kilometers,
Wow.
and it's about 1200 meters change elevation.
Beautiful place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally, in my third year, I cycled up to Nainital. I was very slow. I think I would have started around 6 a.m. and I reached the top at around 3.
Is it via Kaladungi?
So this was from Haldwani and Katgodam. So the
Ah,
other route,
oh, the
not
other
the
road.
Corbett route.
Right.
So yeah, so I think the undergrad years were still a lot more active because the university where I was pretty large, very huge, and cycling was the way around. Postgrad, I was totally into academics. In fact, after that also got into work, joined ITC, and I just forgot cycling. So it was just like okay, cycling and sports is something that you do in college and in younger years, and I completely got into work. In fact, when you talked about my journey, like you have seen me a lot since the last 8 years when I've been in Bangalore, where
Yeah.
I used to hardly cycle. I used to, in fact, only cycle on Sundays because I
Right.
was working in a startup. So that was my first like 3 to 4 years of my career, where I was all focused about work, uh, and actually had a very funny story. So I was working in ITC in Andhra, and then I moved to Mondelez or Cadbury's, as everyone would know. And so what I used to like in Cadbury's is that I used to go early to office, start early, because some of it was a regional role, and some of the work used to start with Singapore time, or you had some colleagues in Australia, so work could start a little early. Now, so one day I just saw someone, not someone actually, my super boss. He uh, was walking in with a t-shirt and shorts, and was walking in a very funny way with the clack sound. So what I now know is like cleats.
Cycling cleats.
So
Yeah.
he and that made me realize that okay, you can work and you can cycle.
Ah.
So I just had that thought in my mind, and what I did was that immediately at that time, as a bachelor, I talked to my roomie at that time, and again flatmate at that time, and I said that we need to go and buy a bike. And that is when like it was Armstrong years, or post Armstrong years. Immediately in that month, went on to buy a bike. So at that time, Firefox was the dealers for the
Right.
Trek. So this was like 2013, and that was a time I was just not very clear as to how much I would be able to cycle, but I just wanted to buy a road bike and a proper road bike. So got a Trek 1.5,
Nice.
and yeah, that's what got me into cycling in some form. Again, those years, in fact, I started very gradually. But I always had this kind of target, like, okay, let me do 100 kilometers, some number which at that time was a little far out. And yeah, so
Nice.
got into cycling in that sense.
Good. Your first proper bike was a Trek 1.5 road bike. Yeah, not bad. And the first time that I saw you or met you was in 2014 TFM.
Yeah.
Right? You, Anand, Don were like, in the corridor assembling bikes and, cleaning, meticulously cleaning the bikes after every day. It was quite fascinating to see. What was the journey towards TFN? You started properly just the year before,
Yeah.
right? And then how did you kind of decide, okay, I want to write this, and how did you kind of prepare for that?
So actually, I think I got to know about TFN on a in-flight magazine. And while I'll not say I'm very experimentative, but just reading the article about TFN, I was like, "Isko to karna hai. I want to do it." And prior to that, I think that year I had done the Super Antonia series. So the first 2 years of my cycling, it was all about distance, and I was not very social. So I was riding on my own, going to Panvel, doing Borghat. I tried Mathiran, which is another steep climb near Mumbai. At that time, I was in Mumbai.
Right.
So it was more about distances, definitely not about quality. So I was quite slow at that time. And when this whole like I got to know about TFN, then I thought that yeah, I need to plan for it. I need to prepare a little for it. And yeah, so did a couple of rides up Bhorghat. Definitely that did not prepare me for TFN. So 2014 TFN had the Kalahati climb, it had the Munnar climb, it had the Valparai climb.
Your intro to TFN was like trial by fire, because
Yeah.
to this day I've done 12 editions, I guess, but to this day 2014 edition is the toughest, because like you said, we started with the climb up Kalahati, then Valparai, and then the ride to Munnar, the 50-kilometer climb up to Munnar was like, is the final nail in the coffin for most people actually on that tour.
Oh, it was super tough.
Yeah.
I remember my stats on up Kalahati. So Kalahati is a climb which is like 11 kilometers and 11% gradient.
Right.
I did it at an average speed of 5.6 kilometers per hour, and I did not get off the bike.
Wow.
This
for
means,
first
yeah,
time.
Yeah.
That's an achievement in itself.
So and what surprises me is that how slow I was, that I was not falling off the bike. If I would have walked up, I would have done it in the same time. So I think TFN in one way was very transformative. It changed my goals for cycling. So before TFN, it was all about distance. When and that TFN like Venki, you, Shiva, a lot of these people were like demigods, and we used to like read about the blogs and read about these things, and it was just trying to absorb what you guys are doing, how you guys are going downhill, and so there are a lot of stories around, and Anand Kapoor definitely has even more stories, right? So
Right.
the way he would tell about how you guys ride and your technique. So this was all very new. The second thing was, in that TFN you had the Dixon brothers, a lot of the guys from Europe,
Yeah.
and that was the first time so Don and I, we were trying to just be behind those guys, and that was the first time we rode in sort of a peloton.
Right.
So that TFN made me realize that, okay, first of all, I really need to up my game.
Yeah.
And another thing was that there is a whole different world where you can travel and cycle, see things.
Yeah.
Again, TFN was about photography, about being with friends beyond cycling.
Yeah.
So great experience, made friends for life, like Don, Anand, they're like family. Met you guys. In fact, later on when I was looking at a change from Mondelez, moving to Bangalore for a startup, that was also something that gave me that comfort that, oh, Bangalore has great cycling environment, great people. So yeah. So to your earlier question, right, about TFN, the preparation definitely was very basic.
Yeah.
I did a couple of 400-meter climbs for what was going to be
Right.
a couple of 1,000-meter climbs.
Right.
But what it definitely showed me that you need to focus a lot more on quality and not on quantity. So,
But maybe that quantity also kind of became your base as such, right? You did a lot of, your focus on the distances at that time may have become the kind of base that you needed for, in those initial couple of years of starting out. So, and then TFN, you was started thinking about quality and all that, right? And when was your move to Bangalore?
2015.
2015, right after TFN, I guess. So, what was it like those initial years? Definitely working in a startup environment is a little more, a bit more challenging, I would think. And knowing you, how you are like so much of a workaholic. You used to always like when you and Shankar were riding together, always like talking about work, these numbers, that numbers. Is like, but how were those initial years?
So I think first thing, moving to Bangalore, there's a huge difference in the kind of cycling. So in Bombay, when I used to cycle, it used to be like 10, 20 kilometers, we are riding, then somebody wants to stop. I never liked being like stopping like in a ride as much. Moving to Bangalore, two things. One is first 60, 70 kilometers, no one is stopping, right? Second thing was that everyone goes harder on the climbs. So
Right.
every flyover seems to be like a sprint. And I was completely out of my water when I started cycling here. Second thing was definitely the work front was really, really hectic. It was a startup. I joined a Series A company, and I had to invest my time there.
Yeah.
So in fact, Venki, if you remember, I used to only ride on Sundays.
Yeah.
And at that time, I did not even have a trainer. So essentially, I was just getting slaughtered every Sunday.
Yeah. Weekend warrior, and exactly the word, getting coming to get slaughtered as such. It's like that would be the hardest. Some of the hardest rides used to happen back in the day, actually, compared to even now, right? But yeah, so like, were you, was it not like hard to kind of keep showing up on those rides?
So I really, really wanted to ride that one day out. And at that time, if you remember Hari, Doc Bhateja, everyone was at their peak.
Right.
So these guys are at their peak. I am like just riding out on a Sunday or coming on a Saturday. And as I said, like getting really beaten up. But I think what really transformed was actually around COVID times. So I still remember this was a day before um, the lockdown that was going to happen. So there were a lot of news of potentially some kind of lockdown coming in. I was having again a chat with Don. So in my life, any major decision that has to happen when it comes to a bike or a car, I will just talk to Don. And at that time, we just discussed that okay, let's get a proper trainer. And I called up Murali. I bought 2 trainers, and I think having a trainer was something that really transformed my cycling. So as I think initially you talked about, right, being time constrained.
Right.
Definitely during COVID, we were not that time constrained.
No, we had a lot more time on our hands. Yeah.
But what trainer gave me was quality time on the bike. And then definitely after a month or two of the initial lockdown, there was a lot of riding that I used to do with you and Dipankar. Right. So both of you have a coaching background. You guys read a lot, and then you guys coach a lot, right? So I think that was a time when I really got into these more technical conversations about FTP, power, right, nutrition, and then I think the broader kind of formula that I just have for myself is like currently, if I see, I put around 9 to 10 hours a week into cycling. The negative or the weakness in my approach is that I am all focused towards cycling. So that's like definitely I'm not into like not doing enough strength training. Definitely I do a little bit of stretching. But coming back to cycling, the way I work in the current more constrained, and I say more constrained because now I'm also a dad.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's about 5 days of cycling at home in the trainer, and I definitely look forward for the day I ride outside, like generally Saturdays.
Yeah.
And within this, I do try to sprinkle, say, a VO2 max session or an aerobic session. Again, the journey over the last 4 to 5 years has been a lot of learnings. If I talk about the best experience ever that I've had in cycling was the France trip that I had with Don. So it was like 2 weeks of cycling, all the
When was
legendary. So this was 2018.
2018. Yeah, I remember, seeing your updates around that time, Don, and you were like, what is that? 2 weeks of, cycling heaven in Alps. How was that? Let's talk about how, all the planning and the riding went there.
So I think first of all, with respect to planning, again, the person
Don.
that I just depend on is Don DeMello.
Yeah.
So Don meticulously planned. He planned to the level that so Don also has a very technical bent of mind.
Right.
So he in fact measured how much TSS would we be accumulating like every 3-4 days, then seeing that we should have a break. So essentially our France trip was about like we go to one area, do a couple of climbs in like 2 or 3 days, then move to another area, and then do climbs in that area. And we did it over 2 weeks. Within that, Don was so very like did his planning so very well that okay, we are going to do Losses de Montvernier. After the climb, we will take a detour. We'll walk a little, and from here we'll take a photo so that we can get the whole of Losses. Or okay, today we are going to do Alpe d'Huez, but on the return we'll take a detour. From here we can take a third of the Alpe d'Huez photo. So brilliant planning. I was exposed to very few climbs or knew about very few climbs of Tour de France or France in general, but it was just brilliant. We did Grand Colombier, Glandon, Galibier, Siestier, Menestre, Mondo Chat. Lot of different kind of climbs.
All the legendary climbs of Tour de France. Yeah.
Yeah. So and it was brilliant, and we definitely it was a big experience then. Again, I would say that I did not plan that well for that particular tour. So like had a 3 to 4 ramp up. At that time, I was a little more structured. At that time, I had a more basic trainer did quite a bit of it. But then I think the training load from those rides was immense. I think we did about 18,000 meters elevation in like 2 weeks. And I also got injured. So I had tendonitis, and like a year after that when I was not riding at all.
Oh, what was the injury? Because of all that climbing?
Yeah.
What was the injury?
So basically, bit of a muscle imbalance and tendonitis in my knee.
Right.
So that was something that put me out of cycling for a full year.
Whole of almost most of 2019 kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think from mid of 2018 to the mid of
2019. Right. Yeah. So I mean, what was it like? What helped you get out of that injury? Is it just rest, or was some sort of physio or something was involved?
So I think in hindsight, while that 1 year was very tough for me, there were a lot of learnings. So definitely you can't abuse your body. And like in 2013, I did the SR series with, I mean, it's like, चलो 400 किलोमीटर कर रहे हैं, right? Like, अच्छा 600 किलोमीटर कर रहे हैं.
That itself was training.
Yeah. And now if I look back, I was like not prepared at all.
Right.
The France trip, while I had like a 4-month build up, but that build up was nothing compared to the kind of stress and load that I was going to be putting on myself. How I came out of it was definitely had quite a lot of physio sessions, a lot of strengthening around the knee, working on the muscle imbalances. Also, before starting and being able to ride with you guys, a lot of cycling in the gym, so that I can. So what I used to always remember is that, okay, even if I meet you guys at the Esteem meeting point, I don't want to get dropped at the first flyover.
First flyover is all. It's a strange meeting place that Esteem. While it is a very convenient place for multiple people to kind of meet there, the thing with that is you start riding and you get on that flyover within a few meters, like within 100 meters is that flyover, and that goes for almost a kilometer or so.
Yeah.
And if you put the pedal down, the stronger riders are going to go way faster than most people can keep up. So that actually happens. Yeah.
So that 1 year started with 2-3 months where I was still figuring out, okay, it'll get fine, the injury will go, but then it did not, and then went to physio, went through the whole strengthening development phase, and then got back into cycling. But yeah, I think the real shift that happened. So if I look at my cycling life, right? So TFN in one way was very transformative in the way I thought. So TFN was all about like thinking about, okay, earlier it was about कि चलो 400 किलोमीटर करना है, 600 किलोमीटर करना है, right? And after TFN it was like, okay, I want to do this climb and I want to do it faster, right? Then again, some work, other priorities, stuff. But definitely during the COVID times, like after I had a proper smart trainer at home, that is when there was a big pivot where and the conversations we were having, right, of how do you better use your time and see how you would want to become stronger.
Right.
So I think 2020, 21 was a very good build-up for me. And at that time...
So that was all mostly lockdown, on and off kind of scenario. There were some months where we were not allowed to go out. I mean, some of us were sneaking out, even during that time, because the roads were practically empty, right? But we were trying to do a lot of indoor like racing, all those new apps that were coming up. We were trying to organize longer rides and all that. So what was the kind of riding that you did during 20 and 21 that became a little bit of a base for you?
So generally, I think I don't remember how many weekends I would have not cycled outside. I think there were a couple of weekends we would have cycled alone. But I think after a point we were cycling in
Right.
smaller groups,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Definitely Nandi was not accessible.
Yeah.
So I think we were missing a lot of that.
correct.
But then you had other climbs like Antaragni, definitely a little smaller,
Yeah.
but you could go there. I think you only were doing the virtual Nandi ITTs and the
Yeah.
races. Zwift had really picked up. Uh, so I think one thing was that cycling also kept us very sane during that period.
Oh, yeah. You can say that again. Yeah.
Because I think we would have been as a bunch, right? The very few cohorts or very few groups of people who would be meeting in some sense.
Yeah.
And we were also interacting like once a week at least.
Correct.
So cycling, I think, beyond strength was also great for our mental well-being.
Definitely for sure. Yeah.
The other thing was, I think you talked about a lot of the virtual apps. And Zwift, if you get into any race, the start of the race like kills you.
Yeah.
And then you have to like just sustain. So definitely at that time, you also wanted to improve, wanted to work on it. Yeah. So definitely during that period, my training volume was quite high. It was around 12, 13 hours a day, hours a week. And good mix, definitely a little more on the virtual side. But yeah, I think, but at that time also I did a couple of mistakes. I towards 21 uh, first half, that was I think my best fitness. But then I sort of got burnt out. So definitely at that time there was this whole thing of like numbers,
Right.
and numbers just became too much for me. Like if you try to do, okay, I'm today doing VO2 max effort, it's like 80 TSS, then uh, so this thing is what in fact Dawn really impressed on me, and that's something that's like really set in stone in my mind, is like if you want to train, you build your load week on week and then take it a little easy and then build again, right? So that you give successively more like harder efforts, and over weeks you accumulate and then see that your body becomes stronger. So I got to a phase that I was pretty good, but then I was hitting a ceiling at around 700 TSS a week.
700. Yes.
And I was not taking any formal coaching, etc. And I wanted to do more. And I did not take care of one, nutrition. The other thing is I did not take care of rest. So I think that was the big learning, that in hindsight now I see what was very needed at that time.
Yeah.
And I ended up being from very strong to actually burning out.
Right.
And if I now look back,
When you say burnout, what were the signs? What were you experiencing at that time?
so one is like when you're achieving your targets, like say if you want to have a great time on say Nandi, or you want to be able to deliver a certain kind of power output for a certain amount of time, right? So you feel great about it,
Yeah.
right? But if say you're not able to achieve those, and then you're not able to figure out why, then you get into a negative cycle,
Yeah.
right? At that time, I was like, say, a Nandi ride or a ride outside, which is like a 4 hour ride, can rake up around 250 TSS.
Yeah.
The rides at home, right, you cannot have successive days at around 100 TSS.
Yeah.
So what I did not realize is that while I'm really trusting the numbers that I'm seeing on my Garmin or on my Training Peaks account, uh, I cannot do any more than the numbers that I'm delivering on like inside like in virtually.
Right. So yeah, about 400, 500 TSS indoors is a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And that also combined with not taking care of nutrition and recovery aspects will definitely, put you in a hole that is very difficult to get out of.
Yeah.
There are people who went through this burnout, and it can take years to get out of that kind of situation. If you dig deep, dig yourself into a deep enough hole, to climb out of it can take years, if not months, right? Glad that you kind of realized, even if it was in hindsight, because when you are in a situation like that, it would go, and then choom, you are like, you hit a abyss. You would feel fatigued all the time. You would be like, no, the numbers that you were casually doing would feel like you are over in VO2 zone and all that, right? So it kind of plays not just on your physical well-being, being like feeling fatigued all the time, but also on your mental well-being, right? It's like, what is happening? You're not able to kind of figure out, the things that the people that I was able to keep up or even drop, before. I am barely able to keep up with, and all that. This can play on your mind like really bad. So yeah. How did you kind of realize and get out of that funk?
So I think at that time it also sort of uh, like I got a lot more busier on work,
Hmm.
and I ended up also changing to another organization.
Hmm.
So I ended up focusing a little bit more on work, a little less on cycling.
Hmm.
But what confidence the build up during the COVID time
Hmm.
gave me is that I'm always 4 months away from the kind of level that I can or I would want to be at.
Right.
So while I was not at that level, it always felt that okay, currently I have my XYZ priority.
Hmm.
But if I want to focus,
Hmm.
I think I have a decent rule book
Right.
to follow
Hmm.
and get there.
Yeah. So if you are able to maintain a base, right, that you can build on,
Yeah.
right? If you are able to, don't let it fall into the base. If you are able to maintain your fitness to a reasonable level, it is easy to kind of, if you have a goal event somewhere, say 4 months down the line, like you were saying, 16 weeks is a pretty good block, that you can work on, provided you are maintaining it on a decent uh, level. Yeah.
If you look at like any average year of mine that was pre 2018, my cycling mileage, if mileage is taken as a number, would be
Right.
around 5,500 kilometers or 6,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
But if you see, after having a good trainer at home, that mileage would move to around 8,000 in a bad year,
Yeah.
right? So, and even if you're able to put like 40 minutes of quality time, and in that 40 minutes you will only be spending around 10 minutes in a proper good zone, right?
Right.
So it's very very doable, and it also ensures that you have your base fitness that you can build on.
Correct. Correct. So maintaining it is becomes a little bit easier when you have a. I always tell people that, if you are looking at training, a trainer, an indoor trainer becomes an invaluable tool. Now, of course, it will be boring and all that, right? Provided you have, unless you have a kind of structured intervals where you are focusing only for those minutes on that particular effort, that kind of helps, with that boredom, taking care of that boredom. So trainer, of course, is an invaluable tool, especially for every working athlete who is constrained for time, who just doesn't have somewhere to get out of the door and ride into the hills kind of scenario, right? Which some people have, those people who live in Ooty and
Or Goa.
or Goa and stuff like that. But yeah, that's excellent. So how nowadays, how does your uh, a week look like, or a training cycle look like? Good.
So generally, I always have a step increase in my overall load.
Right.
Uh,
So
I
weekly TSS or weekly
so I
hours.
just so there are two things that I look at. One is what is the accumulated load that I'm doing at a weekly level. I am not too focused on a daily level.
Yeah.
And since Saturday is the day that I go out with friends, that is a day when I would generally know that I'll be putting a VO2 max effort on Nandi, or I'll if I'm not putting a VO2 max effort on Nandi, I would be doing some sprints, some following up some of the guys. Uh, and hence a day before, so generally Fridays I keep it very easy for myself.
Yeah.
Same, so essentially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays is a little heavier when it comes to specific zone-based training. And depending upon which part of the 3 to 4 week block I am, I'll see how I want to rake up the TSS or the training load. I generally see that I'm not doing, say, back-to-back days of anaerobic workout, etc. Another thing is that the way I train now versus say the build that I was doing during the COVID times. So the 2 or 3 key learnings that I have now employed.
Right.
One is that I decide if I have to do a hard workout, factoring the kind of sleep that I have had. So I would not be doing a hard workout if I have not slept well.
Yeah. That is very important.
Yeah.
That kind of flexibility, right? We might have put ourselves a plan, or your coach might, for those who are working with a coach, might put some plan in there. And if you see that as something that is set in stone, not considering your life circumstances, you now have a kid, that might entail some sleepless nights. You're always like, the work might be very dynamic, and some issues might crop up that kind of keeps you awake. All these things you have to take into consideration. You can't just wake on 2 hours, 3 hours sleep, get on a trainer and decide to do VO2 intervals and stuff. It can be, rather than being very beneficial, it will be quite the opposite, right?
Yeah. The other thing is that I have made my cycling a little more polarized. So if I look at, say, the 24 build versus the 21 build, at that time the target was always Nandi time, right? So at that time I would focus a lot more on VO2 max intervals. Now, because I'm say factoring my fatigue, or I'm factoring my sleep and rest, uh, even if I have to go for a harder workout, the next thing is I'll go for a anaerobic workout or a VO2 max work, not a VO2 max workout, but something which is
Higher
even
than
more
VO2.
higher intensity, but for a much more shorter intervals. I feel that at least I am able to complete that, say, a 40-minute workout, which say targets the neuromuscular zone, rather than trying 5-minute efforts which are at the VO2 max. So
for those who are not familiar with polarized training, is something that all these Norwegian or European coaches kind of prescribe to, which is a lot of, when you are riding easy, lot of easy work, and uh, some 20% of this is above your uh, threshold zone, right? So that is what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the rides that have to be easy, even when they're on the trainer, there are strict zone 2. So in fact, some of the times if you're riding outside, right, you don't have a lot of control on who you're riding with, how at what pace everyone is riding at. So some of the trainer rides are extremely focused at a easier zone, and you, even if you're enticed, you don't ride hard.
Right.
So one was factoring rest. The other was being a little more polarized and doing a lot of strict zone tours. The third is focusing a lot more on nutrition. I really, since you see the mileage has increased, so now my mileage roughly is around 1,000 kilometers a month. I really ensure that I'm eating a lot. So earlier, say it was like the training for France in 2018 or earlier, I was to build on power and also try to optimize on weight. Now, if I'm generally seeing that I'm doing a good mileage, a good month for me is like 1,000 kilometers to 1,200 kilometers. So I'll ensure that I'm eating a lot and I'm not trying to optimize for weight. So I am willing to sacrifice on weight, that is like go for higher weight, but not trying to get a great power to weight ratio. Because I feel that I have gone wrong trying to manage this in the past.
It is when you are not when you also want to when you want to train hard and also want to reduce weight, it's a very very sticky wicket, right? You can get into trouble real quick because carbs are the king when it comes to most of the higher intensity work and stuff. You can get away with no carbs or like faster rides and when lower intensities, but anything that you want to build your power on, you have to kind of fuel for it, right, through carbs. And yeah, it is also very very dicey to kind of manage that. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to focus on fueling yourself, fueling for the workout and fueling for recovery to ensure that you are recovering well and stuff, right? Excellent nutrition and making sure that sleep and you're taking sleep into consideration when it comes to like intensity and all that. Excellent. Yeah.
The other thing is, I've like earlier always the target used to be Nandi. And for Nandi, if you're really preparing, it's going to be like a 26-minute effort or a 25-minute effort. And it really sometimes can like bog you down because you are going to be like hitting, like I generally have a higher heart rate, so like 189 bpm, it's spinning, you're putting in that effort. So now what I've done is that since I was also doing a lot more of like higher intensity neuromuscular zones, etc. So it's like, acha, I want to do a good effort. Okay, there is a 2-minute like proper climb, which is say Gopal Betta. Right? If you want to really show that you are like in good shape and feel good about it actually. Right? Okay, there's a 2-minute climb. If you want to really go flat out, okay, there's a 5-minute climb, which is Antara Gange. Right? So it's like not creating a target which is like bogging you down and trying to say that, okay, if I hit this number or if I do this in this much time, I'm in that zone, it's good. You don't need to kill yourself and for like a 30-minute or a 25-minute effort. Yeah.
So the focusing on numbers kind of helps, right? But it also kind of can have a detrimental effect. It can bog you down at times, right? That's to kind of have those alternative things would help. What is the PB on Nandi right now?
So my best time was 22:36.
Damn, 22:36. When was this and how did you pace that for that?
So this was September of 2020. So this was like probably a week after Nandi was opened up. And yeah, so that was a highly optimized ride. I started from the base. Luckily at that time I had DP Dipankar also, who paced me for the first 1 or 2 kilometers. And I was not carrying my saddle bag. I was not wearing my goggles. I just had one bottle with me. But I think that build up was very good. Like currently, for the last 1 year or so, I have been consistently, my times would be around 26 and a half. But at that time, because we're not doing Nandi, and most of the time was on the trainer.
Right.
I had built up a good amount of power, and so from my cycle, my trainer is actually in my bedroom, thanks to my wife. She's so flexible, and I can always look at Nandi on a clear day. So my motivation was always Nandi while I was on the trainer in COVID with all the restrictions. But yeah, so in terms of pacing Nandi, I mean,
before we go to basing, was that did that factor in for in your decision to buy the place? You having that view of Nandi?
I think yes. Yeah, I actually saw Nandi when I was like looking at this.
Nice, nice. Yeah, let's talk about pacing.
So I think the beauty of Nandi, because like this is a hill which is very near to all of us in Bangalore, is that you do it a number of times, right?
Yeah.
You would have done it in your cycle career for like a lot of times. So you know each and every turn. You would know where you would want to take a tighter line. Definitely the first half is shallower, lesser steep. There is a midpoint which has a little bit of a downhill, and then you have a steeper part. I always prefer a steady effort. So I knew, or I thought that I can do around 270 watts. Like just as a context, my weight would have been 67.5.
Right. Yeah.
So I paced planning that. So definitely I started a little with at a slightly higher wattage, which would have been probably a 290-ish. But I was very clear that I would want to be always having my cumulative power beyond the 270 number that I was targeting. And then towards the end, I'll go a little flat out. So essentially, it was paced with steady power. The only like upper guardrail for me was that I don't want to see my heart rate beyond 195 or 194 till I am in the last kilometer.
Right.
So one thing that again, you always know what kind of power output that you can
Is that
put out.
your LTHR at 190? What's your LTHR?
I would not know.
No.
What I know that my heart rate in an outside environment can go to a 195-ish, but I would not be able to be more observant of things around. So it's not very safe for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely I can go flat out towards the end, but keep it steady in the initial part.
Perfect. And you were about 67 and off at
Kgs,
that time. Oh, okay. So I think I did 24, 26 or something. Again, like a decade ago. And my power was 272 and I was about 68, 69, something like that. Yeah, good old days. Nice. So, coming back to like the nutrition and rest and training cycle that you currently follow, right? You said what was the weekly kind of hours you maintain
About
now?
9 hours.
9 hours. Right.
So 9 hours would be broken into like about 4 hours, 4.5 hours, which is on Saturday. And the rest would be around like 50 minutes to 1 hour on the rest of the days. One day, if I'm not able to cycle because of work, lack of sleep, etc., it's fine.
Right.
No problems, no issues.
Yeah. So also kind of with the baby in the picture and your wife also kind of being a runner and all. What I noticed is that you guys have this structure in place where one day you would go out and do your cycling, and the other and Recha would take care of the kid, and the next day is her run day, long run day, and you take care of it, which is very nice. How did you kind of was it always in place, or how did you guys arrive at that kind of arrangement?
So my wife is very systematic, okay, and she's definitely with, I think, this generation of moms. They want to work, they want to do other activities, they want to take care of the kid also very well. So she starts her day very early. She generally gets up at around 5:30, 5:45. She'll definitely want to make something fresh for the kid so that when he wakes up, he has something very healthy to eat. Uh, Generally 6 to 7:15 is her time when she will be going out for a run or do weights and stuff. She's a lot more balanced than I am for sure.
Wow.
And then around 7:30 to 8:30 is like my time. Before then I head out to office.
Right.
So that's like the regular kind of days that are there, and then
Nice.
definitely weekends. Saturdays are mine,
Yeah.
Sundays are hers. I think more importantly, for both of us, we are very clear that the other person is a lot more happier and saner
Yeah.
if they are cycling or running, say,
Right.
in the case of my wife.
Yeah.
Definitely when we got married, and like and I like we like did not have an arcade. So at that time, definitely Richa used to find out, okay, Saturdays you're out, Sundays you're out. Where do we spend our time together, right?
Yeah.
But over a course of time, she realized that I'm a better person if I'm riding.
Yeah.
And we sort of got into an equilibrium where we both appreciate the other person's time, and uh, I think both of us end up doing activities like
Nice, nice.
sports.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is important to kind of initially there might be friction, like you kind of mentioned, right? But it's important to kind of understand what these things bring to us, right? Uh, each of us, in fact, right? In your case, both of you kind of do activities that involve at least about 9-10 hours of training and all that, right? And when it's nice to kind of see on a daily level, also you consider that the time that she gets to spend and the time for you, and balance things around, move things around. Very nice. That's another thing that I was like really appreciative of both of you. That I see like, wow, nice. And these are all the things that I kind of notice, and you from our common friends on the rides, and someone like Rushit would not, yes, will say after 9 on a Sunday, no, I have my kids to go. Like, damn, I'm not focusing enough on the kids. I need to. So these are all the things that I kind of observe and learn from each of you. Very nice. So um, coming back to your work and cycling, right? How and how do you kind of balance them, and how do you think they kind of complement each other?
So actually, I think last 2 years is sort of a good equilibrium where I'm able to get the time that I am getting,
Right.
and I feel that actually, if I have to say cycle a little more or train a little harder, the constraint is not work, but is the number of hours of rest. So uh, it's like I'm happy at this kind of level. The other thing is that definitely the good thing with my role is that I'm not traveling, which actually was the case during my startup Black Buck days, where I was like 3 to 4 days in a week. I was going to various cities and stuff.
I remember it kind of throws everything off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it's good that my work is a lot more in Bangalore only. Definitely, I go to office every day. I don't work from home, but I'm happy with that kind of space. And as I said, with this current level, if I would want to train a little harder, uh, and if I want to, and I take out time for it, I think that's possible. So Yeah, looking back to say where I was 6 years back, I think I've a more structured or a better rule book from all the mistakes that I've done
Yeah.
to be in the place I want to be. If I like so every year towards the end, I'd go to Goa where my parents stay, and Goa is like cycling heaven, especially at that time of the year.
Yeah.
And I've always like the year before I was very greedy, so I did a solid 3 minute effort one day, some climb trying to get a good time, some segment, and then towards the end I could see a lot of fatigue building up, and this time, like when I went to Goa, it was very clear that okay, when my legs will be fresh, Chandreshwar climb, that's a good 15-minute climb. I would like to
Very nice
put that
climb.
X amount of effort, then 2 days super easy, then because there you don't have the trainer, etc. But then you can just go to the house and just do a 30K, 60K loop.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think things have a little more perspective, and you're not trying to be very greedy.
Yeah.
कि ये भी कर लेते हैं, ये भी कर लेते हैं and stuff.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like say, I wanted to do Anmod Ghat, so I always drive to Goa while my wife and kid would fly to Goa because I take the cycle, and I also get 10 hours of like me time driving there. And I would always go up and down Anmod Ghat while going and coming back. But I had never cycled on Anmod Ghat.
Oh, not yet?
Yeah, so I cycled
This time?
This time. And
How
I
is
was
that climb?
The positive is that it's a very wide road because it's a highway. And in the morning, at least my experience was that the traffic will not slow you down, and it will not be a factor. So
While climbing, at least.
it's absolutely not a factor. What I don't like is it's not steep enough. So the average gradient is like 4%. Like if it is in the 6-ish%, then you can like put out more solid power.
Right.
And definitely the other thing is like from where I stay in Goa, it's like Bamboli. So going there and back is like a 130-40 kilometers. And 130-40 kilometers in Goa is not like Bangalore.
Yeah.
Like the regular Nandi ride for me is like 138 kilometers. But the amount of up and downs that you do while going,
yeah, it's very lumpy, no? Goa.
yeah. So the Anmod climb, I started hard. I was like X effort, X time, on track. But after 7-8 minutes, I was not enjoying it. I was like, leave it.
How long is the climb?
So I think the best time would be by Vinayak. No, it's by Chinmay, the coach who is moved to Goa, and would be around 26 minutes or something. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So what, 9K kind
Yeah,
of
it's a
climb?
10K climb.
10K
It's a
climb.
10K climb. Yeah,
Wow.
roughly 4%.
Nice. Excellent. So what's what is on the menu for this year?
So definitely this year I'd be going to Meoka with a couple of friends like Doc Vateja, Anand. Yeah, so Sakalabra is one climb that I always wanted to do. In fact, it would have been like 2014. There was one ad of Trek where there were these two cyclists going up a climb, and it was a what one? Domane ad.
Domane, yeah.
And I saw this climb and like, which climb is this? How can I search?
Yeah.
And finally I figured out this is this Sa Colabra climb. So that's definitely on the books. Yeah, and again, it's like 6 days of climbing. I don't want to be too greedy. I'll see if I want to pick up a shorter climb where I do better time and not try to kill myself on every day.
Right. And these climbs are probably ridden by all the pros. So
Yeah, so
it's
that's
like
another
any time that we do would not be like anywhere in the top 100 or anything.
Yeah. So yeah, cycling in France also, like I was not looking at the segments. There's no point looking at what your rank is.
Excellent. So it's been super fun, Milam. What to kind of conclude the session, what are some of the tips that you would give fellow working athletes?
I think one is just try to be consistent. you can always be like 4 weeks, 8 weeks away from where you want to be if you're consistent. Also, see if you can do a little bit of structured training. It would make your rides outside way more fun. You would, means structured training really has helped me ride and have more fun outside. It's not about crazy numbers and stuff. You can just be within your limits and enjoy and do a little more of photography and other things also.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think these are the two things that I would say.
Awesome. And talking of photography and all, we are kind of lucky to have you as our official and unofficial photographer wherever, whenever you are on the ride. And like, yeah, we got the photographer. Amazing pics you managed to take in, you know, for even for a person like me, you make me look good. So thank you.
Thanks, Venki.
Thanks, man. It's been super fun conversation. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your experience with the Working Early podcast.
Thanks.
That was my conversation with Milam. I hope you enjoyed that. If you are enjoying these podcasts and are finding them useful, please consider supporting the podcast by subscribing to it on YouTube as well as on your favorite podcasting app. It really helps. Thanks again for your continuous support. See you next week with another guest.